Sometimes you have to start over. Chapter 21. Sometimes it's in your best interest to start over, even if you're established and can afford to do so as you please. A good example of that is the new Palm Trump Hotel tower that's going up in Dubai. I think most of us have heard of Dubai by now. In the United Arab Emirates, just off the coast, is a man made palm tree shaped island, the Palm Jumeirah. That is a remarkable achievement of engineering and imagination. I partnered with Nikhil, the developer of over 30 billion in real estate in Dubai, to build a tower on this island. Nakhil in Arabic means palm trees, so it follows that this would be their imprint in the Arabian Gulf. In 2005, we went into partnership and agreed that our hotel, which will be the luxury pivot point of the Palm Jumeirah, should be an extraordinary example of design and innovation. We both had the experience, the credentials, and the desire to do something amazing. One thing that attracted me to Nikhil, aside from their proven record of success and expertise, was their innovative approach to whatever they did. Our original design for the hotel garnered a lot of publicity. It was a tulip design that would have a state of the art exoskeleton frame. We were excited about this iconic design. The price tag would be 400 million to complete it. However, after reviewing the design, we realized there were some problems with it. We agreed that it looked a bit heavy, so we decided to start over. We just scrapped it. Don't ever be afraid to change your mind about something. There is nothing wrong with that. Yes, we'd spend time and money on the first design, but when you're going after the extraordinary, sometimes you have to take extraordinary pains to achieve it. The new design we came up with was stunning, a split tower with an open core design. It would cost 600 million for 48 stories and would be constructed with glass, stainless steel, and stone. It would definitely be worth it. We expect the tower to be finished in 2009. There are considerations beyond the usual when you're developing internationally. And sure enough, in February 2006, we were hit with a political global trade controversy involving Dubai that threatened the viability of the project. Major world events can crop up at any time, and sometimes I feel like saying, now what? However, that's part of the deal. It can be a challenge, but it's always enlightening. Anyway, the controversy was over the sale of shipping port management businesses in the six major U.S. seaports to a company that was based in the United Arab Emirates. This received huge attention as a national security debate in the United States. The question was whether such a sale would compromise port security. This put Dubai in the national and international spotlight. For us, that could be a good and could be bad. The good news was that suddenly everyone knew where Dubai was. The bad news is that controversy, especially concerning national security, could work against spreading the message about Dubai being a fantastic destination. It took us time to fully comprehend the echo of this controversy. I found it interesting that the development followed shortly after our deal went through the United Arab Emirates, but all we could do was write it out. Hold on, let me read that again because I found it interesting that this development followed shortly after our deal went through in the United Arab Emirates, but all we could do was ride it out. I was relieved when it was resolved quickly and amicably. Eventually, U.S. security concerns were addressed, and Dubai demonstrated it understood the importance of security. We are looking forward to a 2010 opening in Dubai, and I already know it's been worth every change and every challenge. There may be a few more challenges along the way, but I'll be ready for them. Be resilient. Sometimes a challenge will knock you down. Your plan may be a bust, or your goal may be unattainable for a time. You may be stopped in your tracks. Get back on the horse. Deciding to try again is the first step toward getting it right the next time, Coach Trump says. I told my friend I was a big time loser. Chapter 22. I'm fortunate to have the capacity to change my thought patterns quickly to focus on something new without a long adjustment period. For example, people have commented on how quickly I conduct meetings. I can lead and I can lead effective and productive meetings one after another without any downtime between them. I credit this ability to knowing what focus really is and the ability to get to the point very quickly. My focus is always on the solution to whatever the problem or challenge might be. In contrast, I have met so many people who waste a lot of their time and mine talking about their problems. It becomes very clear to me that they are avoiding looking for a solution. They either like the drama of their situation or are too lazy to make the effort of using their brains to look at solutions. Thinking takes energy, and it shouldn't be wasted dwelling on the wrong things. For every problem there is a solution, and capable people will look for that solution. Make sure you're one of the capable people. Getting to the right point sometimes is just a matter of asking yourself the right questions and answering them honestly. I remember an old friend who was miserable in his work, going on about his travails when I had repeatedly told him he was in the wrong profession to begin with. I finally became very abrupt with him and told him he was a big time loser. That was cutting to the quick, and I meant to because I wanted to get him to change. In this case, it actually worked. I got him to focus on the solution, not his problems, and now he has a successful and happy life. Sometimes bluntness is necessary. Sometimes you need to call people losers, and I'm looking to all of you in the crowd, in the audience, in the desktop. Losers. For those of you who have watched The Apprentice, you know what goes on in the boardroom. Very often it sounds like a revved up soap opera with everyone going at each other at once. What you don't see is that sometimes it goes on for hours, and I mean hours. The number of stories and opinions inside dramas that don't make the final cut are truly unbelievable. When it's been edited down enough to fit the hourly format, you see the most important points were pivotal in allowing me and my advisors to make a decision. The rest of it becomes inconsequential, like background noise, very loud background noise. My point here is that we can all do a little editing ourselves of our own unnecessary chatter. When it comes to making a decision, stay focused on solutions to problems, not details. That's the power of focus. Use it. Do something for your community. Chapter 23. People who live in New York City have all heard of Jones Beach, the beach, and the boardwalk are part of a fabled history that began with the great Robert Moses. He considered his waterfront park on Long Island and his great achievement. I visited Jones Beach as a teenager, and it has always been a special place to me, as it is to thousands of people. So, I was delighted when the opportunity came to renovate a major piece of it. When former Parks Commissioner Bernadette Castro reviewed my plans, she considered them like a gift from God. We announced this project in September 2006 with a proposed opening in the spring of 2009. There was opposition at first from the citizens complaining that Trump was not fit for the Jones Beach scene, and the Society for Preservation of Long Island Antiquities made it clear they feared what the size of our new building would do to the visual balance of Jones Beach. When they realized how involved I was in the building plans and the fine details, and how concerned I was over the impact of the development on the community and the environment, they were reassured. I even brought out a piece of marble, Brescia on C. Anicia, to show them. I thought it would look great, and it will. It's the same marble I used at 40 Wall Street. It's sepia and really beautiful. There will always be naysayers to anything you try to do, but this is a good example of how you can help your community. When they realized how this project would revitalize the local economy and how beautiful it would be, the negativity lightened up. And most people think it's going to be fantastic. They're right. It will be a win win situation for everyone. I told people I wanted to bring the historic site up to the gold standard it deserves, to make it a destination point worthy of its amazing history. What we are doing is replacing the old boardwalk restaurant with a beautiful 36,000 square foot facility that would have the Atlantic Ocean and park views. There will be a catering hall and restaurant. We will have social and corporate catering, a restaurant, a lounge, and a ballroom. It will restore Jones Beach to prominence in the life of New York City. In fact, New York can expect to make around 75 million from it over the next 40 years. The building will belong to the state. Not a penny of taxpayer money will be spent. Our long-term lease special a long-term lease required special legislation, which was not a surprise. We're in good company, of course. However, only one other New York Parks contract has a term that long, and that's Niagara Falls. We had to deal with a lot of roadblocks, but we prevailed, and it will be a fantastic site. Being in a position to help out Jones Beach has been a tremendous feeling. I know detractors will be pleasantly surprised when they see how well integrated the design will be with the environment and the park. In a way, I am paying tribute to Robert Moses. I'm sure he would be very proud, and so will the New Yorkers who have loved Jones Beach. Defending the Flag, Chapter 24. I have been fighting battles over flying the American flag. Can you believe it? At my California Golf Club, Trump National Golf Club, LA, I put up a big American flag, built a flagpole specifically for that purpose. Suddenly, they were saying it was too big. Too big? Too big for what? It faces the Pacific Ocean. I think the Pacific Ocean can handle it. Hmm. I never thought that flying the American flag on American soil would be considered subversive. But that's what it amounted to. Although there will always be some small minded people who have a complaint to make, they made their complaints, but then came the backlash. Everyone rallied to my side, though, in defense of keeping the beautiful American flag waving. The publicity was terrific, not only for patriotism, but for my property. Suddenly, everyone knew about this beautiful golf course that fronts the Pacific Ocean. Everyone knew that the American flag meant enough to me to go to battle for it. I didn't have to do much persuading. Hmm. To keep the flag, the uproar that ensued did the persuading for me. So I decided to put the American flag on my Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida. I would love to tell the story, but I've agreed with the town not to do so. But I'm pleased to report that the town is happy. I am happy. And most importantly of all, the flag flies proudly. Always remember, some things are worth fighting for. The American flag is one of them. When your wardrobe malfunction, when your wardrobe malfunctions in front of 10,000 people, make it part of your act. 25. Everyone gets egg on his face sometimes, including me. Screw ups may not seem so funny at the time, but at least they make life interesting. Fortunately, in almost every instance, even big goofs can work out for the best. I know that sounds cliched, but it happens to be true. I was scheduled to speak in Dayton, Ohio, and about 5,000 people were waiting. I was flying from the New York City along with a camera crew who would be filming the speech for footage on The Apprentice. Just as we were ready to take off, my jet stopped. My pilot said there was something wrong with the brakes and he didn't think it was safe to proceed, so we tried to get a commercial flight. But there weren't any that could accommodate the large group we had. I started to wonder if I might have to cancel the speech. However, when I gave my word that I'll be somewhere, I do my best. So what I did was to call all my friends and ask if anyone had a private jet we could borrow. Sure enough, someone did have a jet at LaGuardia that wasn't being used, so we all piled out of my jet and into another jet and finally took off for Dayton. I figured it would all go well from then on. When we landed in Dayton, it was pouring, just pouring buckets of rain. Plus, it was rush hour. It was such a mess that they arranged a full police escort for me and my entourage to get back from the airport to the arena where I'd be speaking. It still took a long time. This was beginning to seem like a trip to China, not Ohio. To top it off, it was also Melania's birthday, and I had planned to go back to New York City in time to take her out for dinner and to celebrate. Unless she was ready for some midnight supper at a local deli. Those plans were about to be scrapped too. The audience had the worst of it. They had been waiting patiently for several hours at this point. When I finally arrived and told the patient folks in Dayton that they'd had their own reality show that day, they were impressed that I had finally made it there despite several major deterrents, and we all had a great time despite the delays and, and the rain and the malfunctions. In fact, they sang happy birthday to Melania while they were waiting for me to show up. When I finally arrived, someone gave the heads up that Mr. Trump has entered the building. Shades of the days of Elvis. I had a good laugh, and we all had a day to be remembered. The point is, even if big goofs can often do and work out for the best, Another time, I was scheduled to speak in Las Vegas in front of approximately 10,000 people, and I flew in from California with about half an hour to spare before going on. Since I had been traveling, I asked a younger woman was backstage, who was the backstage coordinator, to have my jacket pressed. So she took my jacket, and I waited in the green room chatting with visitors with Keith, my bodyguard. When it was time to go on, I started looking for my jacket. It was nowhere to be found. I had 10,000 people waiting for me and no jacket. The young woman appeared and told us she'd sent my jacket out to a nearby hotel to get pressed, and it wasn't back yet. We were astonished. With half an hour to go before stage time, no one sends a jacket out to be pressed. We thought she'd have it steamed or pressed by on the premises, but she was obviously new at her job. I wasn't happy about it, but what could I do? I borrowed Keith's jacket, even though Keith is a bit of a larger man than I am. It had to suffice. I was a few minutes late getting to the stage, but the crowd didn't seem to mind too much. I told them about what had happened backstage, and I apologized for the jacket that neither fit nor matched my suit. They didn't seem to mind that either. The speech went well despite the backstage commotion, and they seemed to enjoy the spontaneity of what was created by someone's mistake. I still wasn't happy about it, especially since I spent a lot of time preparing to make sure my presentations are seamless, but I figured what's over is over, and I let it go. The next day, the front page of the major Las Vegas newspaper was a photo and the story about me. I shared the front page with a story on Jay Leno, of all people. Due to the wardrobe malfunction that occurred the night before, they decided to give me more coverage because it ended up being a funny story to them. The billionaire loses his jacket. So this goof ended up being in my favor in the long run after all. Take blips in stride instead of trying to deflect problems or obstacles and send them off in another direction. Try to embrace them. Turn them into something positive. You can often disarm people this way and get them on your side. Don't get too attached to your ideas. Adjust, adapt, and take things in stride, says Coach Trump. Don't get complacent. Thinking you're foolproof is as good a way to set yourself up for a big mistake. Chapter 26. The Trump Organization currently has 33 real estate projects in development worldwide. There's a lot of buildings, and managing these projects require a lot of travel. I'm very grateful that my three eldest children, Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, are on board now and help out and take trips to places like India, China, Dubai, and Istanbul. Hmm. Many of these projects are very desirable. Trump International Hotel and Tower combos that are incorporate both condominium and hotel accommodations. People often wonder how these buildings get built, and it's a good question since we are the only hotel company that also serves as a developer. If the Trump name is going on a building, there is a huge amount of preliminary due diligence and ongoing management work to be done. The only way to ensure quality is to stay on top of all the issues. This process is a complex jigsaw puzzle that there are a lot of factors to consider because we don't allow the Trump name to be associated with anything that isn't carefully considered and scrutinized. We receive proposals constantly, all of which are evaluated because we will not be interested in 99% of them. We are also approached by over 300 developers per year who want to partner with us. So we have to take an aggressive approach to evaluating deals. We vet each proposal, analyze the deal, and check out the sites personally. When something is a go, we review budgets, do pre development planning, and then start the bid process. We deal with contractors, subcontractors, and negotiate the final price. Every construction document has to be reviewed by our team. Next, we start weekly construction meetings and sales and marketing meetings. We speak to representatives on our job sites every single day. Nothing is left to chance. There's one reason for our success. Because we have many international developments now, one thing we deal with is securing financing in foreign countries. This can sometimes be complicated. If the country has a track record of political instability, if we get in at the right point in a real estate growth cycle, it may still be relatively inexpensive to build there, but with good growth potential. So we will take advantage of the opportunity. It would be easy to get complacent because we've had a lot of successes, but we know there's always risk around the corner. We avoid being complacent by being due diligent in our preparations. Thinking you're foolproof is a good way to set you up for making a big mistake. We often become interested in a site because I've been there and seen the potential myself. That happened when I visited Panama City for a Miss Universe pageant in 2003. I remember saying, "This is a beautiful city and a fantastic place, and I'd like to build something here someday." Well, someday has happened, and the Trump Ocean Club is underway. A 2.4 million square foot, 65-story hotel and condominium tower. It's the first time the Trump organization has invested in Central America, and it's a terrific choice. As fate would have it, the unveiling of the plans for Trump Ocean Club in April of 2006 occurred the same day the Panamanian president Martin Torrijos asked voters to approve a multi-billion-dollar project to expand the Panama Canal. This would have been the canal's biggest modification since 1914, the year it opened, and would enable a large modern cargo ships to navigate the canal. The growth potential was obviously there, and this was a good indication that the city was on the verge of a great surge in interest and activity. The design of the Trump Ocean Club Tower is remarkable as well. It appeared as a very tall sail, and the units will have flown through panoramic views, truly spectacular. I've got my own instincts and preferences, but we also review what comes in for us from other people. We cover our bases and are always ready for an opportunity. We are developing a property in Istanbul after my good friend, the late Ahmet Ertegun, the founder of Atlantic Records, suggested the idea. Ivanka will be visiting Turkey to look for a site. Once a site is approved, we will appoint a project manager to oversee the project. For example, in Las Vegas, we have Brian Bardreau to supervise the Trump International Hotel and Towers development. I can call him at any time to see what's happening, and I'll be comprehensively informed from one call. There's an efficiency to our operation that allows us to move forward quickly and confidently. No project will be free from the problems that can and will surface at any time. However, we do our homework and know we've done our best to ensure a high success rate and world famous standards of quality. That's the Trump way, and Don Jr., Ivanka, Eric and I are working together to make sure it remains that way. Complacency kills. You heard? Remember that your success and all good things that come your way are direct result of your effort. You have a place to live because you've earned it, and you have possessions because you've earned them. Growing cocky or self-assured can lead your directly to your downfall. I know this because it's happened to me, says Coach Trump. Only in New York, the city will serve up problems and solutions you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 27. Traffic can be unbearable in New York City at times. Once I was with the apprentice crew in my limousine and we got stuck in traffic. We were at a standstill. Everyone started doing their elbow to the horn routine. The horns just kept honking without interruption. My limo was packed and we hadn't moved an inch in 20 minutes. I finally couldn't stand it anymore, so I decided to go out of the limo and just stand in the middle of the street. What had happened was classic, but it worked. Suddenly, the horns stopped. There was dead silence because people recognized me standing in the middle of a traffic mess. They did what they'd hoped. They did what I'd hoped they do. They took their hands and elbows off their horns and started waving and shouting, "Hey Donald, hey Donald Trump. It's the Donald. Hi Donald." It was a great moment, and I waved back and laughed, but mostly I was relieved they'd stop honking their horns. For a couple of minutes at least. Jesus. There are times when it's great to be recognizable, and this was one of those times. Of course, there are plenty of times when it creates problems I could live without. I have a great security team, but now and then things can happen. I was scheduled to appear at a party on a ship on the Hudson River that was going to do an evening dinner cruise around Manhattan. It would take up about 15 minutes of my time, and I would leave before the boat left the dock. It was a great cocktail party, and I was talking to a few people when suddenly I noticed the boat wasn't at the dock anymore. We were going down the river. No one told me we were leaving the dock, including my bodyguard. He hadn't noticed the boat leaving either. Well, here I was, stuck on a cruise around Manhattan for 3 hours on a Saturday night. Not exactly what I had planned. I didn't know who to get angry at first. The captain, my host, my bodyguard, whoever was around me. I never would have agreed to a 3 hour cruise. I thought about jumping in the river and swimming back to Manhattan, and I was pretty mad. Anyway, since there was nothing I could do about it, I decided to go with the flow. It was actually a great group of people, and they seemed happy to have me on board, whether I'd been invited or not. So I joined them, told them stories, had some laughs, and it was great. It was also a beautiful evening, and the party took a celebratory mood that no one had expected. It ended up being a night we'd all remember. My advice to you is go with the flow, especially if you don't have a choice, says Coach Trump. This time, I actually enjoyed a smooth sailing that was totally unexpected and not my agenda. I was thinking life is like that sometimes. It helped a lot when I just lightened up a bit and managed to have a good time. Try it yourself sometime. You'll find it will work for you whether your name is Donald Trump or not. How to de-stress. Chapter 28. Everyone has his or her own way of letting off steam, letting go of tension, and changing thinking patterns. Whatever works for you is the best choice, as long as it's not self destructive or destructive to others. That's what I like. That's why I like to golf. Golf is a brain game, but it can be totally relaxing at the same time. I find it opens my mind to new possibilities and I can problem solve very effectively while I'm on the golf course. What I do in the office at times is to practice my swing, or I'll just pick up a golf club and think about the game. That action alone is a breath of fresh air, even if it's office air, and helps me see things creatively in a new light, perhaps. I know that some of the people find music or exercise does that for them, but for me it's golf. Another way to de-stress is to replace negatives with positives. This applies in many areas. For example, I try to surround myself with positive people and get rid of negative types. Anyone who visits my office will notice that I have many photographs of my family, my parents, my children, millennia. That's a great positive focus to keep. Not that I need reminders, but a glance now and then can keep things in perspective. I also have photos and mementos of achievements that I have meant a lot to me over the years, so if the going gets rough, I have tangible reminders of past successes. None of them were easy either. Keep your momentum going. Try to replace negatives with positives, and you'll have more success waiting for you even right now. They are nowhere in sight. You will be attacked for trying to change anything. Chapter 29. Marjorie Merriweather Post officially opened her Mar-a-Lago estate in 1927. She was then Miss Edward F. Hutton, and she spent 4 years constructing this incredible estate, which is on a coral reef in Palm Beach, anchored by concrete and steel. For your etymologists, Mar-a-Lago is a Latin for sea to lake. Oh, Mar-a-Lago is Latin for sea to lake. Interesting. Just for just from those few facts alone, you will begin to get a sense of the history of this magnificent estate, which I saw for the first time in 1985. We've all heard of love at first sight, and I got that lightning bolt the first time I saw Mar-a-Lago. I immediately knew it had to be mine, all 128 rooms of it, all 110,000 square feet of it, all 20 acres of it. I knew it might not be easy, but I couldn't have been it couldn't have been easy to build something like this, and the challenges were apparent. Apparent. It was a bit of a wreck from neglect, but nevertheless, I was determined to own it. I think you should know a bit about how Mar-a-Lago came into being, considering it's a historical monument. Miss Post, who was the serial heiress, obviously, thought details were important. 3 boatloads of Dorian stone were shipped from Italy. Over 36,000 original Spanish tiles were laid. 2,200 square feet of black and white marble from an old castle in Cuba were used for the dining room floor, and a 75-foot tower topped the main structure. Palm Beach society was under the combined forces of Mar-a-Lago and Post, and for good reason. This place surpassed the glory of Newport and San Simeon mansions in a New York minute. In 1969, the Department of Interior designated the estate as a National Historic Site, and the property was placed on the National Register of Historic Places after Miss Post's death in 1973. The estate was transferred, according to her will, to the federal government for use as a presidential retreat or for diplomatic purposes. 10 years later, because there were security concerns as well as a huge maintenance bill, the government confer the title back to the Post Foundation. Then I came along in 1985. A lot happened between 1985, which was my first glimpse of the spectacular wreck, until 1995, when it was opened as a private club. Buying the property was the easy part. There weren't too many legitimate offers out there. I paid Post Foundation a grand total of 8 million for the house and the grounds, including 3 million for all the original furnishings. This included the china, the crystal, and the goldware. This was a record-setting price, but in reality it was a low price for Mar-a-Lago. Another reality I soon was to face was the opposition of Dina Merrill, Miss Post's daughter. Although she was more concerned with her acting career than the well being of this priceless estate, she did everything she could to thwart me. However, other members of the Post family took my side in realizing that I would preserve the integrity of this and elegance of the Mar-a-Lago. One of them, Marjorie Post Dye, the first grandchild and namesake of Marjorie Merriweather Post, referred to me as a big blue-eyed guardian angel and hovering in a holding pattern, just waiting to land and take charge. This family member later told me I had saved Mar-a-Lago. My point is this: you will always have detractors. That's life. The higher you aim, the more opposition you will encounter. In spite of this, there will always be someone who will see you and your good motives for what they are. Around Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago was known as a white elephant, magnificent but impossible to maintain. Jimmy Carter gave it back to the Post Foundation because of what it was costing the taxpayers to maintain. As you know by now, I like a challenge. I used the house as a private residence until 1995, but my first thought when I saw it was that it would make a fantastic private club. Along with this great idea came another huge obstacle: zoning and local ordinances would never permit this. It would never happen. It had to remain a private house or the property would be subdivided. This was horrific, I thought, but that was the reality. I was living very happily with my family at Mar-a-Lago, even though it was far too big as a house. There were parts of it I had never seen. There were bomb shelters, for example, and many wings left vacant. Then, in the 1990s, I ran into a financial crisis to the tune of billions of dollars. You can imagine my thoughts. Great time to own a money pit. But I can tell you, I didn't actually find it a great weight. I had so much else to worry about that even with its problems, Mar-a-Lago felt like a minor weight to me. I remember being in a room full of bankers trying to work out a very complex situation, and there were friends who were truly trying to be helpful, trying to be lighthearted. In a dire situation, I said to them, well, since it's Friday, I think I'll go down to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend on my 727. They didn't think that was very funny, and I knew immediately I'd made a big mistake. So I quickly told them I was going to subdivide Mar-a-Lago and call it the Mansions at Mar-a-Lago. As promised, them it would be a huge moneymaker, and promised them it would be a huge moneymaker. That worked. I saw their anger disappear immediately. However, now I was stuck with doing something about what I had just promised. The thought of subdividing Mar-a-Lago was anathema to me. I went to Palm Beach with that idea in mind because it was a logical solution to the problem, and I met with the town attorney and the town building inspector, and I thought I was entitled to 14 lots, but they suggested I ask for 8. Because then the zoning would go through quickly. However, the town rejected my proposal, even though it was a routine proposal, nothing extraordinary or outlandish. and less than what I was entitled to ask for, but I was amiable and went along with whatever they were demanding. I was wondering how long they would continue to try to bamboozle me. Here is where it's important to stop and think for a moment. If you remember, I had hoped to turn Mar-a-Lago into a club in the first place, but I had doubts, big doubts, that it could ever get rezoned as a club. Instead, look what happened. I had been denied my legal rights by not being allowed to subdivide the land. I was entitled by law to 14 subdivision lots. I knew this and they knew it. And it was totally unfair. I actually think they were very embarrassed by their hard nosed stance against me, but it worked to my favor. They might also have known I could take them to court. You may be right if you're thinking, is anything ever easy for this guy, even if his name is Donald Trump? Doesn't seem so, does it? However, I was determined to set this straight. As a result of the treatment I got from the city of Palm Beach, my team and I went over everything and we had done in the past year and a half and made sure we have complied with precisely every demand. Then we reviewed the actions of the Landmarks Preservation Commission as well as the town council, and we decided to file $100 million lawsuit. My civil rights had been denied, and we all knew it. I saw a way that this could work out to my advantage. That's a good thing, too, remember? When things seem unfair or unjust in your life, where keep keep looking cool, being patient, and using your head comes in very handy. During the litigation, the town council came back to me and said they would give me the 14 lots I originally wanted, the maximum allowed under the law. So I told them I wasn't interested anymore. What I wanted was a private club. Now I had leverage due to their mistake. It also turns out that two town council members had the prescience to see that what could be done with Mar-a-Lago to make Palm Beach even more desirable. And the town council eventually approved Mar-a-Lago for a private club. The event took longer than a paragraph to describe, but another reason we got approval is that Mar-a-Lago would be open to everyone. There were some clubs in Palm Beach that had no Jewish or no African American members. It was hard to believe that, but it was true, and I wanted to change that for good. Now, we not only had a good case, but a great case, and a good cause. Needless to say, this plan brought a whole new group of detractors to the surface. I was prepared for the attack. Every issue became a battle during this time to get Mar-a-Lago going as a club. Once again, however, I knew I was doing the right thing. Once again, I won. In 1995, Mar-a-Lago became a spectacular private club. It has since been referred to as the Jewel of Palm Beach, and for good reason. You might think I would get tired of all these fighting around Mar-a-Lago. It's a funny thing, but sometimes you find that the more opposition you encounter or create by your actions, the more energy you get, says Coach Trump. Try that approach sometime instead of throwing in the towel or being disgusted when you run into opposition. You'll find out how tough and smart you really are. The actions of the town council, along with the archaic response of the town against a club that admitted all people, gave me a tenacity that could not be beaten. Repeat that to yourself. I'm doing the right thing, and I will not be beaten. At the same time, I was struggling to create Mar-a-Lago Had many difficulties, obstacles, and setbacks with many other projects as well. I started to learn to expect problems. Experience can give you a resiliency that is very valuable. When you get to that point, remember, don't give up. Those words can get you to great places. Can you get to the place you want and can change attitudes that should be changed? That's winning. The latest threat to Palm Beach is from the airport. They want to build a new runway nearby, and it's a real problem. Here's a letter I wrote to the local paper. You have to keep fighting. The letter reads March 26, 2007. Mar-a-Lago is a great landmark which will be hurt badly by adding another runway to Palm Beach International Airport. It would destroy the integrity of Mar-a-Lago and the national trust of for historic preservation. In this total agreement with that assessment, another runway would be a complete disaster. If equal importance for the city and the state government, it is a total waste of 1.5 billion to build a new runway. That is unnecessary. My pilots and others who are familiar with aviation and the particulars of airports feel that is a complete and total waste of money, as the current runways are adequate and will be well into the future. They have other land that could be used to build a runway at a different section of the airport if it were really necessary, which it is not. In short, to build another runway would be destructive as well as wasteful. Save the money. Let Bruce Pelly get on with his life. Signed, Donald J. Trump.